G'day YouTube, welcome back to another one of my videos. As I mentioned in another video, I was going to restyle this black pine. Now it belongs to a customer of mine, and you can see how it's quite, I'm holding it because it's very hard to position this because it's just going to fall usually because of the weight of the foliage. Now I've actually talked to the owner and decided that I actually convinced him for me to change this style. Now the reason this isn't a good convincing Cascade, it's a very long trunk, and actual foliage starts right down here. If you wanted to have a good Cascade, you should need foliage up higher. Hopefully you guys can see that. There is a bit wire marks and stuff like that, which we can deal with, but this really, that's the main issue, is that foliage is all the way down here. You've got a skinny trunk all the way down, and the tree's always going to be dangling and looking a bit precarious in this position, even if it was like that front on. If this was an exposed Nabari style, like with lots of roots, then I can imagine the tree would be really cool and dangling like that with a bit of foliage at the bottom. But because it's a single tree, single trunk, quite skinny, it's not very convincing. So I did convince the owner that I want to totally redesign this tree. And as this video title is, we're going to turn this tree upside down. Well, it's going downwards. I'm going to make it go upwards. So much more easier to manage and much more interesting. I don't know 100% how the tree is going to look, but I'm going to attempt Literati style with this tree. It will be much more interesting. It has a nice movement, skinny trunk. There's a bit of damage here, so I just have to be very careful when I bend it, but it's extremely flexible still. Very flexible. I can do lots of things to it. I've got 3 branches in here, so I'll have to decide on one, keeping one. Keeping 2 and get rid of one, because there's 1, 2, 3 in one spot. As we talked about, as I always talk about, you can't have 3, because look at the swelling in this point here, in this junction point. It's pretty bad. All right, so the first things I'm going to do is I see there's some wire on this tree, and I'll take it all off, and then I'm going to wire the trunk. And once I finish wiring, I'll bend it in the video so you guys can see how much I can bend a black pine like this skinny. All right, so people might be wondering why I've got so much wire on this trunk, plus how close the coils are. Now, the reason is the closeness of the coils acts like a tourniquet, so I can actually bend this tree quite comfortably without breaking or snapping the tree. Now, that's more important than having perfectly 75-degree angle or 45-degree angle wire that you can't even bend the trunks on. Like, I get lots of comments about, oh no, the rules say and the guidelines say it has to be this distance. Well, that only works if you're wiring proper branches that you're just going to adjust slightly and put into position nicely, and it's easy to do. When you're doing this kind of work, you need very close distance between the wire, so that acts like a tourniquet, so you can bend and twist as much as you want without breaking the tree. Now, I've had to wire it in the same position, in the same direction as it was before, because I was a bit wary of that joint here in the middle. That looks like a bit of a nub that I have to try and manipulate. I was just trying to be very careful. So the tree's still hanging down. I've got a bit of extra wire in the end just to see where I can finish off. But I'm going to try and see if I can manipulate this. Hopefully you guys can see it's a bit awkward, this tree, in terms of styling. So first thing, I'm going to see if I can bring it back up straight away. Now, it's still got way too much foliage. I haven't even started the foliage cutting back. But because I need to try and get some sort of more interest in this tree. So slowly, you see how easy I can bend this, but it's just taking your time to make the adjustments. It's very important. I wonder if that height, can you see that height now in the tree? A little bit more, that bit better, you can see it a bit better. So I'm pretty much just trying to go right around to the other side. I've actually wired the wire that way. So I'm bending it that way now. I can bend, the direction of the wire is the way you bend the tree, so it helps a lot. This is the kink bit that I'm a bit wary of, so I'm just going to try and put lots of movement in the base first, and then worry about the top later. So it's almost holding on its own now, which is good. So I've got the balance a bit better. Now I'm going to need to create more interest in the tree. So I've got this nice big kinking out the base, which is good. I'm going to try and make it go back a little bit. Now this is the hard bit where I have to try and bring this around a little bit without causing too much problems in this bit here. See how incredibly flexible that is. We've actually got a reasonably upright tree now. And it's actually standing on its own, which is great news. But I want to try and just tweak everything a little bit. So sometimes if you want to hold something in position, you put a guy wire to really hold it. But also once I'm to reduce a lot of this foliage, the tree will hang in there by itself. So even though I've got a nice kink, I don't want to make it too S-bendy. So even though it's bending down, I'm trying to make it go back up a little. Something more interesting like that. Well, that's at least a start. We've got to start on making a more Literati style rather than Cascade. So that was pointing downwards and now it's pointing upwards. So we went total of 180. Very easy to do. So it wasn't too bad. Just getting the heavy wire on is probably the hardest bit out of it, because once it's on, you can see there's no risk of breaking that trunk. Now, if I wired it in perfect 45 or 75 degree angle, whatever they say in the books, that would have broke, that would have snapped the tree. This way, acts like a tourniquet and really gives you some real interesting bends you can work with. So I just do want to probably go back a little. So now it's a matter of tweaking everything and getting in position and then changing and then creating a new little apex at the top, which will look quite nice. Okay, so I'm going to now just try and figure out what I'm going to do up here. I think it's just more applying wire and getting I think I want to maybe one little branch down into here and then creating a bit of a branch in here and just an apex. I'll probably only use, there's a branch here that's really nice, this branch in here. This branch in here is really quite nice, it's got a lot of foliage and we can pick and choose. Remember, I always cut back to 2 in everywhere. So I've got, I can see already there's 3, 4, 5 in one spot. So once we cut back to 2, it should be good. I might use this one here instead of this one. This one looks a bit too big and heavy for this drop branch. I might use this smaller one in here, drop it in here, and create a little apex, and we'll see what it looks like. All right, I'm going to keep working on it, and we'll come back. Okay, so just wanted to quickly, I've just got wired a couple of branches now. This one is wired pretty much in a normal fashion, normal distance in terms of wiring. But when I'm going to try and drop this into a branch, to a position down in here. Remember, because it's Literati, you really want to make lots of accentuated movements in the tree. So a real drop, I'll be dropping this right into this position in here. And it's got really crazy movement already, which is great, which is what I like to see. Now you probably noticed what I've got here, like in my other pine videos, is when you have multiple in one spot, multiple branches in one spot, you need to cut back. So I've got a perfect example in this branch here, which I'll wire. I've got 2 little ones in there and one really long one. So I don't really want this really long one. I want the 2 small ones. And so they'll build the future of the tree. I just need a plug to balance out the energy. So there's some interesting bits in here, which there's a little couple of little buds in here and a bud in here, which is good. I'm going to leave those. But down in here, you got the same issue. You got 2 small ones and 1 big one, and I remove that. And so I also want to remove this branch I told you I was going to, because it's 3 in one spot. There's 3 in one spot, so that's gone. So now we've got a really nice little branch in here. I will tweak it and put it in proper position, a bit more wiring. But we can now kind of see how we're going with this. Pretty easy, pretty cool. So I've already wired this one, so I'm going to have to do the same with this branch. Probably has to be dropped down into here. It's a bit better, this one. It forks out into 2, which is good. So I'll keep this one, which is really important. So I'll keep this one for now, because it's like 1 and then breaks off into 2. Even though this is a bit long, we'll hopefully get some back budding, or we'll come back to this one eventually in the future. The one on the inside we don't need. Now it's deciding which of these. There's multiple in one spot in here as well. So I might keep the other one. I'll get rid of this lower one. Don't need anything around it. All right, so it's pretty good. So we just start slowly building. I've got to put more wire on this bit. Slowly building this out. Okay. So I'm going to keep wiring, but you can kind of see the structure we're going for now. I'll fix this up, put it in nice and tight, have the right front, pick the right front I want now, get some guy wires just to hold this in place that I want it to be in, and then we'll look at finalizing the design. So I'm working through the tree. I'm getting to this point in here, and I thought, oh, I'd have lots of branches in there, but this is all emanating from a one spot on the branch. So it's got about 10 buds at the one point. So imagine this is the point, it's got about 10 buds. So unfortunately, we're going to have to cut right back and go back to 2 regardless. So I just wanted to show why this looks so good, but it actually isn't. It's too many in one spot. So we're going to have to cut back. So you'll see, as I said, Literati, you won't see much foliage. It's going to be really bare, which is going to look really good. And then the tree will grow on in the future. It'll be nice tree. So just wanted to highlight that bit there, that I'm going to have to try and pick out the best 2 that I want to keep for the design. And I think I've got the same problem up in this apex as well. So we're going to get stuck into that. So as I did say, unfortunately, there's not much left on this tree in terms of foliage. A lot of it was, as I mentioned, really difficult to work with in terms of they were all coming out of the one point on the branch. So for example, this branch in here, I had to cut back to 2. It had at least over 10. There's dozen, maybe 12, even 15 branches, new branches or candles that have elongated in that spot. And then again, same thing happened in this spot here. There was at least 10, 12, something like that, and I had to go back to 2. And then I had to try and create a new little apex with the 2 branches again. Had multiple branches in the one spot, cut back to 1, 2. You have to do that. Otherwise, it's really swollen. It's actually quite swollen in these points here already. So hopefully with these they're still young enough to fatten up and get nice and dense, and hopefully it'll smooth those bumps out. So really, yeah, there's some points here that are really have so much foliage that there's actually bumps and lumps there right now. Bit of inverse taper, but obviously it's still young. It's still going to grow and elongate and get bigger. But ultimately, this is how I ended up with the tree. The tree goes in all directions. So it goes backwards, then comes back, and then comes forward. So you see how it's all multi-directions. I just want to make sure you guys have got the front again. Something like that as the front. This is the main branch that comes a bit forward. Then the next branch over here, creating a nice pad in this spot. Then I'm just trying to create a new apex with this little bit of branching here. This was probably the problem area. A lot of the branches here, obviously, really heavy and had to contain it. So really, it's got back to 2 here and the new apex and the new side branch. That's all you can really do in this case. But you set up the structure for this tree really well now. And now it just needs time to thicken up. Let these grow. Don't touch it. Don't repot it. Don't do anything. Just water and feed. And let this push out over the spring and summer here. It's still winter here, but it's starting to warm up. It's got lovely movement, beautiful movement all the way through now. I really like it. There's a few back buds, so that's good news. So hopefully we get some back budding happening already. But this just needs a few years to develop now. Really thicken out the branches that have been cut back, thicken out all these branches, thicken out, and then start to form your pads. You don't touch this tree for at least, I think, a year. I won't touch it. I won't cut the candles on it. I need it to be strong. So for 1 year, I'll let it be rest in a way. Let the candles elongate. Don't cut them in December. Just let them grow. And then maybe if there's multiple in the one spot in April or May, in autumn, that is here in Melbourne, I'll cut those back to 2. But I love it. I think it's gone from a tree that was hanging down, dangling, look weak, to a much more interesting new Literati shape. Has a lot of potential now. You could almost even, if this works really well, you can cut back to just this branch here over time. You can just have a Literati with just this branch if it fills out nicely. Drop it even more. You could drop that even more. I've just left it nice and subtle for now and don't want to go too far down. Just leave it there. Nice subtle movement, nice subtle shape, a nice triangular form. Nice little righty here. Anyway, maybe not everyone's cup of tea, I guess, but it was definitely needed because that dangly part would never be a good cascade. You see there's no branching until this branch here. So that's really gives it away in terms of you really can't have a cascade with just no branches until this point. All right, so that's enough of me talking. I hope you guys enjoyed that huge transformation on this one. We pretty much turned it upside down, didn't we? Went 180, was down here, now it's up here. I've done other demos where I've done a really tall tree and cascaded it down. This now has gone cascade back to Literati. So hope you guys enjoyed that and picked up some nice little tips. It was really, the main decision was to, once we bent it up, it was just making a Literati. Least amount of branches. You don't want too much branching on Literati. And then that's it. Just wire it up and off you go. And that's it. All right, guys. Thanks for watching and I'll see you next time.